Hey there everybody, Travis Bowman here. I'm a fingerstyle guitar player and retro video game nerd. Let's talk about Snatcher. Now that word is such a synonymous thing with rarity and money and collectability in the retro video game community. Snatcher is a video game for the Sega CD, and for some reason it's one of the most highly collectible and sought after video games ever, and I just so happen to have a pretty much sort of kind of almost complete copy right here. And I'll get you some good B-roll shots of this so you can see it up close and personal, but I never thought I would have this in my possession, but for some reason I do. I actually got this in a trade. I had the Vectrex collection that I kind of put together over a couple of months, and I decided it was time to move on, and I was trying to sell it, and nobody really wanted to spend the cash for it, so I got offered this in trade of that. Yes, that's correct. I traded an entire gaming system with like 8 games complete in the box just for this one game. I don't know how that works, but it works. The value is there. This is worth more money than my entire Vectrex collection. So what is this? What is this one video game that is so sought after and worth so much money? This is Snatcher, made by Hideo Kojima of Metal Gear Solid fame. This is one of his first games. I mean, he did Metal Gear on the NES, but this one right here, this is a big game for him. It came out on the Sega CD, and this is the only version that you could get in English. It came out, I think, on the Sega Saturn, if I remember correctly, and maybe even the PC Engine, but both of those are going to be in the Japanese language. This copy right here is the one to get if you are a native English speaker and want to play the game. I'm not exactly sure 100% why this is so desirable. I think probably there just weren't a ton of copies that were made, and finding them these days is not an easy thing to do. The Sega CD is one of those consoles now that if you can find complete copies of the games in good condition, they're probably going to be worth some money, depending on the title, of course. But this one is definitely one of the holy grails for the Sega CD, the other one being KO Flying Squadron, if I remember correctly. Just to have it in my hands, because it's just been one of those games where it's like, yeah, I'll never get to hold that in my hands. But I got offered the trade. I couldn't say no to it, so here it is, Snatcher. So what's the game like? Is it even worth playing? A lot of these games that are so rare and desirable and expensive aren't even good games. This is the exception, though. This is definitely a great game. It's kind of like a visual novel with some different caveats. It's really kind of hard to describe, but it's an 80s movie, pretty much. I mean, it's I think 3 80s movies combined. We've got Blade Runner, we've got Dune, and we've got The Terminator. So the premise of this, we're in the year 2047 in Neo-Kobe City, Japan, a place of madness and decadence. Basically what we have are Snatchers. That's what the game is about. Snatchers are these Terminator-looking android people that will take the skin off of a human being and wear it, and you don't know that it's a Snatcher. And we've got these cop-style people called Junkers, and their job is to try to find out who the Snatchers are and, of course, eliminate them. It's a really, really interesting game. I mean, it's like no other game that I've ever played, and to be honest with you, I'm not really that into the visual novel style of game, but I'll always make an exception for this just because it's just so unique and so entertaining. It's one of those games where you just, you get into it and the story grabs you, and then you don't want to let go. You want to continue and follow through this game. I haven't beaten it yet, but I have gotten pretty far in it. So in addition to being one of those games where it's mostly a visual novel, you have some action sequences. And those are accompanied with the Justifier light gun for your Sega CD or your Sega Genesis. In certain areas of the game, you are presented with an opportunity to shoot things. So you can either use the Justifier or you can just use the controller to move your cursor around to shoot. It's really a preference thing. Honestly, I can't imagine playing this game without this just because it's an experience, right? So we've got Snatcher here, and it's a very expensive game, but the question is it worth it? I played the game long before I owned it. There are multiple different ways that you can play Snatcher without having to have the physical copy. I know for a long time, everybody knows that you can burn CDs and play them on various consoles. particularly the early CD-based consoles like the Sega CD, the TurboGrafx CD, as well as, you know, consoles like the Dreamcast. There's all sorts of different consoles that you can burn CDs for, and this is probably one of the best use cases to do such a thing because it's so darn expensive, but you want to play the game on original hardware. You can also emulate it as well. Now here's a recent update you guys might find entertaining here. Here I've got the Sega Nomad. And that's not the important part. The important part is the cartridge that's inside of the Sega Nomad. I've done videos about this before, but this is the Mega EverDrive Pro. It's a flash cartridge by a gentleman from the Ukraine named Krix. Now, he's done several flash cartridges for all sorts of different consoles, but this one in particular is going to be relevant for this because of its ability to play Sega CD games. And that's exactly what I've got going on right here. And here we go. I'm booting up Snatcher for the Sega CD. There's the BIOS screen right there, and I'm going to go ahead and press start. It is booting up Snatcher as we speak on this little tiny Sega Nomad. So that's also an option. If you want to play Snatcher, but you don't want to spend the gigantic amount of money to play it, you can boot it up using this EverDrive right here. And you can play it on your Sega Genesis without the need of a Sega CD. But for those of you that do have a Sega CD, you don't really want to have it connected while you're using this cartridge to play Sega CD games. There's some sort of the thing happens that it doesn't like it if you have original hardware attached if you want to play your Sega CD games on this cartridge. But, I mean, the fact that you can do this in this day and age is really cool. Yes, we've had emulation. There's Snatcher right there. It finally booted up for you. Boom, Snatcher. We've had emulation for quite some time now, and, you know, that's no new thing. You can emulate this if you want to, but what I really want to talk about is now that I've owned this and I have it in my possession, it is mine. Is it worth it to own? And the answer is a resounding no. Absolutely not, man. The only reason I have this is because I got it in a trade. I'm trying to move this actively as we speak just because I would rather have the money than have this on my shelf. Is it cool? Abso-frickin-lutely. Like I said, I never thought I would have an opportunity to own such a game. And to have it is really cool. And I put it on my shelf and just stared at it for a second like, yeah, that's really cool. I own Snatcher. But I'm definitely going to sell this. Definitely going to sell this because although it is very cool and it is a very important piece of gaming history, and I'm really excited that I've had an opportunity to say that I've owned this game, I don't think any game should be worth this much money. And how much money are we talking about? Well, it's the end of 2024, so this video might become dated when I say this. You'll have to look it up yourself to see exactly how much it's going for. But a really good copy, like a very, very good copy, everything's all in order and everything, will fetch you anywhere between like $1,200 and $1,500 just for this one game, right? However, my copy is not in the best shape. The disc has a few light scratches on it, nothing too crazy. And the back art and the case are both in very, very good condition. There's one light scratch up here, and some scuffs from wear and tear, you know, stuff like that. But it's the manual. The manual, unfortunately, is in god-awful condition. It's basically just held together by tape. And I'll get you some B-roll shots. I don't want to pull it off right now because I might tear it even more. But the thing that you have to worry about when you're talking about Sega CD games in particular, and you know, even in some cases some Sega Saturn games as well, it's that old chestnut, that old conversation of disc rot. Now, a lot of people have polarizing opinions on this, but from what I've seen and what I've heard from other people is that Sega CD games tend to be the prime example of disc rot. Now, what does that mean? That means that over time, the data on your disc will start to deteriorate. The actual disc itself will be exposed to all sorts of different elements, and then before you know it, you've got this little tiny pinhole in your disc, rendering it unreadable by your console. And I want no part of that. Now, this disc is in great condition now, but who's to say that it might not be in 20 years or so? And I just, I would rather sell it and use my money for other things that I personally enjoy. Not that I don't enjoy this, but it is an interesting topic for discussion. Would you consider yourself to be a collector of Sega CD stuff? And if you are you even worried about this? Like I said, man, so many polarizing opinions about Sega CD games and Dreamcast games. I've seen it before. I have seen it on a couple of different games in the past. I've seen it on a Sega Saturn game, and I've seen it on a Sega CD game. I haven't seen it on the Dreamcast stuff yet. In my opinion, the Dreamcast games, they're kind of finicky anyway about being read. Depends on your console, honestly, and the shape of your laser. But I don't know. It worries me enough and scares me enough that I would rather move this and take the money and run than keep it up on my shelf. And if I did keep this, I would, of course, get a protector for it, and I would never really play it. And that brings me to my final point is I'm not that much of a collector, I really do enjoy these video games, and I really enjoy their history, and I'm a collector in that regard. But as far as, collecting the most expensive stuff, I'm not really that interested in it, man. I'm interested in games that I can pull off of the shelf and play, and I would feel terrible doing this. You know how many times I've pulled an Xbox game off of the shelf and pulled the disc out and then dropped it on the ground? Oh crap, accidents happen. I would be terrified to do that with this game. That's why I've been holding on to it so hard for this entire video. It's because I'm afraid that my cat is going to jump up here and knock it off, and if this falls and the disc shatters or something like that, that's a lot of money going out the window. And I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not that kind of collector. I would rather take the money and put it towards stuff that I'm actually going to play. So I just wanted to make this video mainly because I have this in my possession, and I wanted to do a video on it while I had it. I'm actively trying to move it right now. In fact, this morning I got an offer of $600 for this, and I turned the guy down. I was like, nope, that's not enough. Even though the manual is in awful condition, it's still worth more than that. And I'm probably going to meet somewhere between $700 and $900 realistically. And when I sell it, I'll post in the comments how much I sold it for. Again, we're in late 2024, December of 2024, so who knows. But I really want to know what you guys think about this. Do you guys own Snatcher? Do you have any memories of this or any Sega CD games in general that you've still held on to? This is one of the holy grails, along with Panzer Dragoon Saga for the Sega Saturn and that KO Flying Squadron for the Sega CD. Personally, I would much rather own a game like Popful Mail or the Lunar games if we're talking Sega CD, but I love my Sega Genesis and I love the Sega CD, but I didn't grow up with the Sega CD because I didn't know it was a thing back then. So I just wanted to make this video and get your thoughts on it. What do you guys think about video game collecting when it gets over the $500, $600, $700 mark? It's just too rich for my blood, personally. I would rather have quantity over quality, meaning I would rather have a bunch of really good games that aren't that expensive than one good game that is astronomically expensive. So let me know what you guys think about it. I'm really curious to know how you guys view video game collecting for the holy grails, so to speak. So here we have Snatcher on the Sega CD. This is probably the last time we'll see it on my channel because, like I said, I am trying to actively sell it right now. But I'd love to know your thoughts about this. Thanks so much for liking this video. Thanks for commenting your thoughts. I really appreciate that too. I really like to turn these videos into discussion videos just because I think it's vastly interesting and I want to know what you guys think about it as well. I really appreciate you guys subscribing, and I'll catch you guys at the next video. Thanks very much.